All right, everybody. I just wanted to point out a couple of things. Abby and I had a post yesterday on the 5 phases of the pulling stroke, and there was some debate on what a pull is versus a push and when that's happening at various phases in your stroke. So I just thought we'd take a look at the same video using an analytical tool that I use to take a look at technique and just kind of break it down frame by frame. So we're taking a look at Abby here, swimming this awesome quarry pull again, and we'll just take a look at the freestyle stroke. So the most propulsive phase in your stroke is the pushing phase. And in the beginning of the stroke, you're definitely pulling. But when we look at shoulder mechanics, I think sometimes we're getting the semantics of like pulling versus pushing. But essentially pulling is when the limb or the force or something's coming closer towards your body. So she initiates her stroke here on the left side. She's creating a pulling force from the shoulder joint. So the shoulder joint is creating a pulling force, and that joint is going to start to, or that limb, her upper arm bone, is going to start to move closer to her body as a result of shoulder extension. But the shoulder is only going to extend so far. So as she comes through this stroke here, she's pulling, pulling, pulling. At some point, the shoulder is not going to extend anymore. So right around this mid-stroke phase, which we'd actually then call the pushing phase, because what's happening here is the shoulder might have like 5 degrees of extension. So the shoulder isn't going to extend past the body. Essentially, it's going to extend in line with the body. And then the rest of the motion is going to come from extension at the elbow, essentially pushing water backwards by extending the elbow or straightening the elbow. And you're now pushing more from that joint than you are from the shoulder. So the shoulder joint on the left side is no longer going to extend. It's done the pulling portion, and now there's more of a pushing phase where now you're actually moving something away from your body. You're pushing water backwards so that you travel forward in a horizontal line, and there's going to be this pushing phase with her stroke as she comes through. We'll take a look at a couple more that are in frame. She pulls with that shoulder. The shoulder joint is extending while she also flexes at her elbow and sets up that catch. She's pulling with her entire arm, fingertips, forearm, shoulder. Her arms extending, and now that shoulder joint's not going to extend anymore. We actually don't, if we overextend, what happens sometimes is we end up pushing water upwards, which pushes energy up and it pushes us down, and it's inefficient. It's not contributing to horizontal movement. So she's going to extend that shoulder, and then the last motion is going to be pushing the elbow and extending the elbow, straightening the elbow, kind of like a tricep extension. And I'm going to share some dryland drills in a moment to kind of emphasize some of those joint actions and those muscles being used. Take a look at a couple more frames. Shoulders extending, elbows flex, shoulder stops extending, and then she pushes, push, push, elbow straightens somewhere around the hip, and then goes into the exit phase of the stroke. So I think regardless of whether or not we're talking about pulling or pushing, it doesn't really matter. What we're talking about is moving water backwards so that we travel forward. And the most propulsive phase in the freestyle stroke is that mid kind of phase position where we're still moving water with our forearm and it's driving water backwards. It's the most propulsive phase, and it's actually one of the biggest advancements in speed in the freestyle stroke is accelerating the hand through that phase of the stroke, really driving water backwards so that we can go faster. We're seeing some of the best swimmers in the world really emphasize that, really accelerate their hand speed through that catch and pull push phase of the stroke. And as a result, we're seeing times come down and we're seeing people swim faster. So I hope that helps create some clarity.